The participants join into the room. It's just 3 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be starting in just a minute. So I'm just going to get started, and as people can join in, they'll be able to catch up. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us for our 4th parent webinar. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today. I know that this was short notice, and I know that your time is valuable. I also want to give special thanks to those parents who have provided feedback to us on our surveys. While all feedback is valuable, I also want to say a special thank you on behalf of the teachers for the positive messages that you have sent them in a time that is difficult for all of us. We will be sending out a survey after this webinar specifically related to our procedures for reopening the school. And again, that feedback is extremely valuable to us. I'm just going to share a slideshow with you, and just give me a second while I get it up. Before we begin today, I would like to thank Mr. Brenneman and Ms. Ayaputh, who will be here today to help answer questions. Feel free to answer any questions by looking for the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. They will do their best to answer them, or if not, they will get back to you, or we will get back to you at a later time. While we were hopeful to return to school on the 6th, there's much speculation in the Korean news that the government will announce school reopenings early next week. We've been talking with other heads of schools throughout Korea. Almost every international school or foreign school with whom we have spoken is anticipating an announcement in early May that public schools will open, and that they, as foreign and international schools, will open soon afterwards. I just want to be clear that we will not reopen BFS unless Korean schools open. For those parents who are joining our webinar today from overseas, we will separately share with you our plan for reopening the school and how your children can complete the academic year when we have a clear idea of that date from the Korean government announcement. Before we begin, we need to take a minute to acknowledge the feelings of many of our families in our community. We are all safe, we are all healthy, and yet we have all lost something in the last few months. Our feelings of certainty and security have all been called into question. We have all had plans that have been disrupted, sometimes repeatedly. We have friends and family that we worry about. Like our teachers, I'm sure that some of you have known people who have gotten sick with COVID-19. Some of us have lost friends and colleagues. Where we are right now in Korea, the Korean government has lessened the enhanced social distancing campaign. In the next week, they are expected to announce the start of everyday quarantine procedures. They can do this because Korea now has 22 days of less than 50 cases per day and an unidentified transmission rate of less than 5%. The majority of the cases are now coming from overseas travelers. As the government repeatedly says, the situation requires careful monitoring. We can anticipate that at some point in the next year to 2 years, we will see flare-ups again. But it has been 22 days of less than 50 cases, 13 days of less than 20 cases per day, 10 days of less than 15 cases per day across all of Korea. Of these cases, over 56% are coming from overseas. In Busan, out of the 134 cases, 113 have recovered and 3 people have passed away. Again, we can anticipate that COVID-19 will be with us for a long time, at least through the next school year. The only way that a normal life can resume is through the development of a vaccine or an effective treatment. And while there's a massive amount of global cooperation among scientists around the world on both of these fronts, the reality is that we can expect that at least through the next 12 to 18 months, we'll be dealing with some sort of loosening and tightening of restrictions on what we can or cannot do, and that may go in cycles over and over again. And so we need to prepare for that eventuality. We have been working on our protocols for safe to return to school since this began. Our goal is to minimize the risk while making sure that we are still able to come together as a community, where the best learning happens. The content of what we teach is important, but school is a place that gathers people together. It is a community. And it is because of the community that we built in person over the first 6 months in our classroom that has allowed us to be successful over the last 2 months virtually. If starting school is important, we have to minimize risk. We cannot eliminate it, but we can minimize it to a level where we will not be affected. I'm going to discuss the safety procedures with you, and at the end of this webinar, we will be sending out a survey soliciting your feedback. Again, that is extremely important to us. We've divided our discussion today into 3 parts: what needs to happen at home, what needs to happen at school, and what will happen with the busing. Be prepared, we have a lot to share, but we want you to be aware that we are prepared for all aspects of school safety and that we have planned out all aspects of your children's coming to school and leaving school. So, before school opens, first, the school will be sanitized by an external professional company the Saturday prior to school opening, and this practice will continue every Saturday that school is open. Second, we'll be enhancing all the supplies in classrooms. All classrooms will have hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, hygienic trash cans. And additionally, the main office is well stocked with masks in several different sizes, from our youngest learners up through our adults in the building. Before we begin school, you'll be receiving a questionnaire, and all families and all staff will be required to fill out the health questionnaire prior to them being allowed onto the campus. So prior to the physical reopening of school, everyone will be answering questions about travel and any kind of symptoms related to COVID-19. In line with the Korean government regulations, no one who has traveled outside of the country will be able to come into the school for 14 days. Obviously, right now there's a quarantine for all travelers returning to Korea. Parents, we will depend on you to inform the school should anyone come in close contact with their BFS student or the student himself if they have been suspected of COVID-19 infection. The student will not be able to attend school until trace contacting has been completed by the Korean Center for Disease and Control. Again, students presenting any symptoms from COVID-19 are asked to stay at home. That includes sore throat, difficulty breathing, coughing, and of course, a fever of over 37.5 degrees Celsius. So coming to school, what is that going to look like for your child? The school buses, we are going to be trying to enforce social spacing on the buses. And so we are looking for ways to decrease the number of children on the buses. In the survey that will be coming at the end of this webinar, we will be asking for volunteers who are able at this time to drive their children to school and will not need to take busing. If that is the case, as with the entire time that we've been off school, you will receive a refund for the school busing. That follows up with the details that were emailed home to parents about the lunch and the busing. So just please be aware that if you're not using the busing, you will be refunded. School buses will be sanitized twice a day. That's before they start their morning route and before the students leave at the end of the day. Hand sanitizers will also be available in the entrance to the school bus, and we'll be asking students to use them as they get onto the bus. When we get to school, the buses will be unloaded one by one in order to avoid congestion at the front entrance. That brings us to dropping off and picking up. If we resume school, or when we resume school, only staff and students will be allowed on campus. Parents dropping their children will need to do so at the bottom of the main entrance stairs. And we have a lot of parents who come for the younger age children who like to wait in the lobby. We'll be asking you to wait outside, but we will make sure that we bring your child safely down the stairs and to you. When students arrive in the morning, typically they would wait in some common areas before going to classes. When they arrive, they will be going straight to their first period classes or their homerooms. Again, just to avoid or minimize congestion. So while we were at school, we will be doing 2 temperature checks a day to augment our 1 temperature check. Students will be temperature checked as they enter the school and also at lunchtime before entering the cafeteria. Just allows us a little bit more fine tuning of doing temperature checks throughout the day. We will be asking students to wear masks at this time at school, including on the BFS school bus. We'll be asking parents to send children to school with a mask, but again, we have an adequate supply of masks should anything happen to that mask throughout the day. School classrooms will be cleaned not only before school starts, but also during school time. As before, we have hired extra cleaning staff to handle the extra requirements that are required throughout the school. And again, once a week on Saturdays, the school will be sanitized by a professional external company. Teachers will be encouraging students to frequently wash their hands, not touch the faces, and signage around the school will reinforce healthy habits. And one of the things that we've seen repeatedly that has the best chance of spreading not only COVID-19, but any flu-like illness is just a consistent washing of hands, not touching faces. Recess will take place at different locations for different sections of the school. Again, just to minimize the number of students who are together at any given time in public areas. Middle school and high school lunches will have their schedule modified so that not all of middle school and high school is sitting together. Students will have assigned seating in the cafeteria to allow for social distancing, as well as we will be installing sneeze guards, essentially, that will prevent the students breathing on one another's foods. As before, we had students lining up to receive their food. Now, Pulmo One, our cafeteria service company, will be providing a lunch that they will be making that day, but delivering to the students' tables so that we can avoid that lineup and the congestion. I would think of this like a bento box or a partition box that students will have. Again, if you would prefer, you just need to let us know in the survey that you're not comfortable with the lunch process, and you can have your own lunch packed. And again, you will be refunded the money that you've already spent on lunches. Mr. Saunders has given up his admissions office right now for a dedicated infirmary or quarantine room for any students who present COVID-19 symptoms throughout the day. And we will be calling you if a child does and asking you to collect the children. And then students cannot return to school until clear of symptoms. After school, for the remainder of the school year, and very unfortunate for us to do this, but we will be suspending all activities and athletics for the remainder of the school year. And there will be no after-school buses. So all students will be dismissed from school at 3:30, but teachers will be available if students need extra help, which is something that we've always been very happy to provide via Zoom. I want to thank you for taking your time to be here today. I know that was a lot of information, but I think that it's important that we do share that information with you. That we do share that information with you. We're going through a historical moment right now, something that occurs rarely, but changes the way that we think and act as people and as groups. We'll be dealing with this for a long time, and our definition of normal is going to continue to evolve as we rise to meet this challenge. This isn't the way that any of us would like for school to look, but it is the normal that we're going to have in order for us to be able to see each other as people and learn in groups. Personally, I know that we can rise to meet this challenge, and I couldn't ask to do it in a better place and with better people. I feel safe in Korea, I feel supported at BFS, and I hope that you do as well. And if I can just give my gratitude to the host country that has been my host for the last 4 years, it is amazing to see around the world, to talk to family in Canada, to talk to friends in America, Europe, Africa, and throughout the Middle East, and hear them say, what an amazing job that Korea's done, how did we do it? As we leave here today, I'd like to remind you one final time to please complete the survey as soon as you can, and certainly by the end of the weekend. I know that this was a short webinar filled with a lot of information. I hope it has been useful for you. It will be as a recording on the school website. If you'd like to review or look over it again, please do so. We will be staying online for the next 10 to 15 minutes if people have questions. But again, I'm really excited that we have the opportunity to start school again. I'm really excited that we have the opportunity to do it safely. I cannot wait to see your children. I cannot wait to see you. Thank you for joining us today.